Yes. Brianna's big brain, and so she studies. But yeah, our staff. This is proof that Grant does exist. He does. Yes. If you want to be up to date on what we're doing besides Monday nights, I urge you to talk to somebody who's already in the club. They can add you to the group meet. That's where everything that we do throughout the week is posted. And you also get to participate in the glorious Meme Monday. Winner this week is Alana. Again, I should add it again.
It was by a landslide too,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. This is basically PC3. Talk meetup. We got sign-ups down here. Want to meet up and chat. You also just talk to me or Tom. You don't have to sign up, but if you're a sign-up kind of person, then by all means go sign up over there, and we can meet up and chat about anything really. This is our topics for the rest of the semester. So I actually want to take a second to lay this out before Grant talks. So you'll notice these first 4 weeks, past 4 weeks, have been basically about the gospel and evangelism. It's been basically the point. We haven't done any apologetics. Our apologetics club, we haven't done any apologetics. Why haven't we done that? Because we think evangelism and the gospel are important. That's the whole point of the rest of the semester. The whole point is so that you can actually live out the gospel, can know that it's true, and you can go share it with people. So without that, the rest of this is pointless. So that's why we kind of took 4 weeks before we even dealt with any evidence, really. But now we're going to basically be launching into a truncated argument for the truth of Christianity. So we're going to start from the bottom up. Grant's going to be talking about how do we know anything, really. And it's going to be true for you, but not for me. And then the next few weeks, we're going to talk about how do we know God exists. Then we're going to kind of cover how do we get the Bible. Is it reliable? How do we read it? We'll take a little excursus on how do we read it. But from there, then we'll go on to look at the evidence for the resurrection and Jesus' claims to be God. So this basically just going to be, the rest of the semester is going to be a long-form argument for why the faith is true. Next week, Jamie Mendez, who's a pastor at Covenant Church, is going to talk about the cosmological argument. So does the Big Bang prove that God exists? Is that a piece of evidence for the existence of God? A couple things that we do throughout the week. We talked about Augustine's Confessions, which is a brilliant book, second most important Christian book after the Bible. I find it intensely nourishing. It's super helpful in the Christian walk. But yeah, we meet up on Mondays if you want to be a part of that. We also have a Bible study now, meeting on Thursdays at Einstein's at 3. Sarah is leading that this coming week, but Sarah's not here today. We also have a study table at Einstein's, usually tomorrow. I won't be there, but you can be there. So you can hang out if you want. Yes, I have an important errand tomorrow. But weekly evangelism. So on Wednesdays, we table in front of the library, and there's usually good conversations there. If you want to just come hang out, invite people to the club, and people usually come with deep questions. And we'll have a question. And sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's serious, but usually good discussions anyway. And then on Thursdays, we all meet to go out and choose to go evangelize together. And so I encourage you to come to that. It's very fun, very edifying. Yeah, that'll be on Thursday this week. And then we have weekly chalking on Monday mornings, just to promote the club for Monday evenings. And we got a stencil for the logo. I don't know if anyone saw that, but we have upgraded our chalking game, and there will be more upgrades. It's very exciting. Yeah, and also all of our topics are live streamed every week, and then they're recorded on YouTube. So if you missed one, you can always go there. But to introduce our next speaker, our speaker this week, Grant is a very good friend of mine. He led this chapter as a director for a fairly long time. Don't know how long. He's a super cool guy. He runs a house church network in Wilmington. He's a teacher at Coastal Christian High School, and he just got his master's in philosophy. Right, that's from Southern Evangelical Seminary. So without further ado, Grant.
Thank you. Yeah, I do Ratio Christi with the high school students. Do I hear amplification? No, that's just my booming, annoying voice. All right. Announcement slides? Okay, cool. I do Ratio with the what's called Ratio Christi College Prep. There we go. We have a Ratio group that meets Thursday nights at 5:30, and that's just high school students, well, mostly high school students. And we just are sort of moving through this like this right now. So over the summer, we did a whole bunch of unhinged theology about witchcraft and demons and magic and psychedelics and what are all how do Christians respond to all of these sort of spiritual categories, and now we're doing worldview. But you guys have the privilege of just doing the foundational, I haven't done this with the high school group in a while. I probably should do that again. But the foundational arguments for the existence of God and the truths of Christianity. So is this a laser? Hey. Anytime you try to have a conversation about apologetics, anyone who's astute enough will challenge you about what the definition of truth is, right? So I've been through conversations that have been an hour and a half, and I thought they were, they went really well. And then at the end they go, "Yeah, it was cool, man. You keep living your truth." I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to cover what is truth." And so before you can say God exists, before you can say the Bible is reliable, before you can say Jesus is God, or before you can say the earth isn't flat, before you can say any of these kinds of things, you have to first describe what truth is, because we live in a day and age where the definition of truth is sort of muddied, not particularly understood. This direction? Okay, yeah. So for us, and I'm going to give you guys a chance. It looks like a lot of you are paired up already, just happenstance. But I'm going to give you a chance to answer one question before we start moving through this stuff, and that is, why is truth important? It's a hint. It has something to do with all of these things. All right. So I'll give you 60 seconds to figure up an answer for that, and then I'll rally us back together. Go. This is a nice laser pointer. What? Oh, yeah. I'm having a great time. All right. What do we think the takeaway is from that question? Another hint. I gave you the answer already. What do we think truth has to do with any of these things? I like that word. I like standard. What else? Any other thoughts? Man in the Duke shirt in the back. Any ideas as to why truth is important regarding these issues?
Well, without truth, then everything is just opinion.
Yeah.
So we really can't do an answer. It's just like having a conversation and then just saying, "All right, cool, see you later."
Yeah, right. So you actually can't have an opinion on it. Well, I guess you could have an opinion, but you can't. There's no objective nature to any of these conversations. So if you find yourself thinking, "I have an opinion on what gender is," regardless of what that opinion is, I think gender is whatever you think it should be. I think gender is something you're born with. I think gender is whatever the government tells you have. I think gender is anything, right? If you have a position on that you think is true, then your definition of what that word means is important. And so all of these things are dependent. Okay, if you're going to have anything outside of just my personal opinion, right? If you're going to have a position on national conflict, right? Israel and everyone around it, right? And so if you're going to have an opinion on something like national conflict, you're going to say, no, this is what you're making a truth claim. This is what the situation is, right? You're thinking either it's a terrible thing that Israel sold a bunch of pagers to Hezbollah and then blew them up, or you're thinking it's a great thing that Israel sold a bunch of pagers to Hezbollah and then blew them up, right? You're typically going to have a position on that. But you can't even really get into the morals of it until you and the person you're talking to agree on what truth is, okay? And so part of the conversation is how do we know what is true, but the primary conversation is what is truth? Like what does that word even mean? Okay, and so we're going to slide into this. These are really dated memes. This presentation is like 4 years old. But did anybody know what movie this is from? Nice. Yeah, The Big Lebowski. And so I don't actually remember the name of this here. But somebody says I'm fat, I identify as skinny, I'm trans slender, right? That probably would get you punched these days. But somebody says I identify as a cat, right? This is supposed to be a meme, but this is actually an actual situation. It was at the time. Litter boxes in public bathrooms and things of that sort. Or Stephanie, spelled, I think it was spelled like this, right? That's Stephanie. Stephanie Walsh. I think it's like that. There might be a T in the last name. I can't remember. But this young lady here in the middle, okay, that is Stephanie Walsh. She is a 6-year-old little girl. And she left her family, she left her wife and 7 daughters to identify as a 6-year-old little girl. These are Stephanie's adopted parents on either side. She spends her, this is a rather dated story, but she spends her time playing with her, I guess it would be nieces and nephews, but their grandkids, okay? So Stephanie Walsh is 6-year-old little girl, and so then questions arise, like real practical questions. Should Stephanie be able to enroll in a 1st grade class or a 2nd grade class? Should Stephanie be allowed to go to daycare, be enrolled in a daycare? Should Stephanie be allowed to, as Stephanie continues to grow older and she's 6 and she's 7 and she's 8, assuming that she doesn't just sort of always identify as a 6-year-old, will she eventually be able to get a driver's license? Can she have a driver's license now if she's 6 years old? Right? And so Stephanie's birth name was Paul. Again, Paul had a wife and 7 children, and Paul left his wife and 7 children to identify as Stephanie. Okay, so Paul is the dead name. Okay, so this is Stephanie. Stephanie, there's lots of interviews about Stephanie on different news shows in the UK. But you can go and you can look that up. So the question is it true that Stephanie is a 6-year-old girl? Or is it true that Stephanie is a 52-year-old man? Right? Obviously, hot button debate issue for today in our society. And so the question tonight isn't, this is important, the question tonight is not, is this a man or a woman? The question is, what is truth? When I say, is it true that this is a man or is it true that this is a woman, what is truth? What do we mean when we say things like that? Okay? And we're gonna hopefully come back to this at the end, and maybe you'll agree with me. If not, we can talk about it. Okay? So first things first, from the Christian worldview, I don't know if everybody in here identifies as a Christian or not, it's really easy to look at stories like this one and make fun of them. I know media outlets like Daily Wire and The Blaze and PragerU find it really easy to make fun of stories like that. But if it is the case that this man, and we'll say, let's say this is a man who identifies as a woman, however you want to parse out the language, if it's true that he really wants to identify as a 6-year-old girl, that seems like he might be trying to hide from trauma. Maybe something has happened that would make him feel safer identifying as a little girl versus identifying as a man who has a family. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's got to provide for his family and his wife. He's like, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather be a 6-year-old girl. Okay? And in the interviews, he goes back and forth. He makes it almost seems like in some days he's not, some days he is. Either way. But the reality is we live in a world that's broken. I guess even if you're not a Christian, you might look around and say this is true. Whether it's broken by natural disaster like in Western Carolina, or it's broken because of moral failure, or broken because of religious strife, like the world we live in is broken. And so at the end of the day, regardless of your religious background, this question is important. What does it mean when we say something is true? What does that mean? Okay? And so there are theories of truth. We're going to go over, I think it's coherence, functional, pragmatic, and then correspondence. So the coherence theory is that a statement is true in as much as it coheres or is consistent with a body of other statements. Okay, if you're thinking this is really philosophical, you're correct. This is a very philosophical conversation. Okay, so we're going to use Star Wars as a running theme to try to explain this. Who has not seen Star Wars? Bless you both. Okay, I grew up on it. But I figured Star Wars was a general enough theme that people might understand sort of where I'm coming from. But coherence theory is that a statement is true in as much as it coheres or is consistent with a body of other statements. Okay. The problem with this view is that just because something is coherent does not necessarily mean that it's true. And so one of the ways that we can explain this is, fairy tales or fictional stories. But Star Wars, all right? So the Force is said to function, and if you don't know what I mean by coherence, maybe this will help, but the Force is said to function a certain way in the universe of Star Wars, okay? It seemingly is so coherent and so consistent within its own universe that fans fight about it, right? Fans are like, this is what the Force is. No, this is what the Force is. No, haven't you read the 3rd issue of the 2nd thing or whatever? And they fight about what the Force is, right? It's a core theme. It's an essential theme in Star Wars. And in the first 3 movies, and by first 3, I mean episode 4, 5, and 6, the Force was more of a spiritual understanding. In episodes 1, 2, and 3, it became a material understanding. It became midichlorians. Yeah, the microscopic organisms that make up the Force, okay? I don't know what it's supposed to be in 7, 8, and 9. No. Yeah, 7, 8, 9. I got my numbers right. But the Force is said to function a certain way in the universe of Star Wars. There are rules that are said about it in the universe, which is why fans fight. So then, if there's no internal inconsistencies, maybe you could argue there are, with how the Force operates, then Star Wars would be true. If this theory of truth is correct, if something is coherent, right? If I say, right, I'm a 6-year-old girl, and that statement is coherent, given the rest of the statements that are after it and before it, right, then that statement would be considered true. And so there are ways that this theory is applied in literature today. If you're an English major, you might bump into something like this. They might not call it this because you're not studying philosophy, but you might run into an idea that this is what truth is. But if this is the case, then fairy tales or fictional stories could arguably be said to be true. That sort of produces problems, okay? We don't think that that's necessarily the case. We wouldn't look at Star Wars and say, yeah, no, Star Wars is a true story. We would say it's a fictional story. But if the definition of truth is coherence, then Star Wars would be correct, or Star Wars would be true. The next one is the functional theory of truth. A statement is true in as much as it fulfills its intended purpose. Now, this one's going to sound very similar to, I guess I don't go over the pragmatic. That's one step too deep, I guess. So the functional theory of truth is that a statement is true in as much as it fulfills its intended purpose for being said. So if my intended purpose for telling you something is to deceive you into voting for me, and you vote for me, then from your perspective, what I said is true. Or from this theory, what I've said is true. Okay? Or, this is actually more related to the case of how it really would be. Many people are Christians today because it gives them a sense of purpose. People are Christians today because it makes them feel welcome. It makes them feel like they belong somewhere. Many people are Christians because it makes them feel like they're not depressed. And all of those are functional. You know, I could say, why are you a Christian? And you go, because I belong. Or why are you a Christian? You say, because God loves me. Why are you a Christian? Because it makes me feel better. None of those things are truth claims. A Muslim could say the same thing. Why are you a Muslim? Because it makes me feel like I belong. It gives me purpose. It gives me meaning. An atheist could say that. Why are you an atheist? Well, because it makes me feel free. It makes me feel like I have meaning, right? Self-driven purpose. And so down here, when I say Christianity is true, I know what I mean. Maybe you don't, because we haven't defined truth yet. But when I say Christianity is true, I mean a particular thing, right? If I say Christianity is true, you say, sure, or you disagree. If I say, this spoon is true, so what? Say this spoon is false. Okay? That's not necessarily what we mean when we're talking about truth. Truth isn't a function. Truth is a property that's different than this. There's no such thing as a true or false spoon, right? I guess language being tricky. You might look at a spoon and you might call it a good or a bad spoon. And maybe that's what you mean by true or false. This spoon has holes in it, or this spoon is rusted, so it's not a true spoon. Or you look at a fork, right? Or a spork. Somebody calls a spork a spoon, and you say, well, it's not a true spoon, right? But we're using that word in this way. It's functional. But when we say Christianity is true, we don't mean that it's true in its function. Christianity is not true ultimately, right? Christ didn't rise from the dead because you need a sense of belonging, right? He either rose from the dead or he didn't, regardless of how you feel about it, right? 2 + 2 = 4, regardless of how you feel about it, okay? And so functional theory sort of falls flat here. We'll look at Star Wars one more time. Star Wars is a religion these days, or so they say. Jediism is a functioning, well, to say it's a functioning worldview probably isn't fair, and they probably wouldn't they would disagree. Although I have I've read of or watched, I've seen people who do treat it like it is their worldview. You can go online, you can join this community. I think you still can. If you get enough votes through the process, you can become a Jedi Master. You can sort of gain a Padawan, all those kinds of things. But people will follow this, and adherents will state that their main reason for being a Jedi is because they want a sense of belonging. I guess I could give it to one of you guys, or I could put it in the group me. But there's a video of a guy. It shows a bunch of different people who are pursuing this idea of Jediism. And one of them was sort of like an atheist, practicing spiritual Buddhist sort of thing. And he becomes a Jedi because he literally says, I want a place to belong. And doing this gives me a sense of belonging. Okay? So he would say, so Jediism is true for me because it meets this function in my life. It gives me a sense of belonging, so it's true for me. Even though we would look at Jediism, we would say just because somebody says that they're a Jedi doesn't mean that they can, force push somebody, or they could, pull somebody or whatever. They could leap over tall buildings in a single bound, right? Anything from Star Wars. So, coherence theory falls short. The functional theory falls short. And then the correspondence theory is what we're going to get. There's one more. What time is it? Yeah, it's 7:34. Let's see. Yeah, I'll leave the pragmatic. So the last one here we're going to go over is the correspondence theory. Okay, we can thank the late, great Aristotle for this. This is going to be the one that I'm going to argue to you is true. And so this is simply that a statement is true if it corresponds to reality. All right. So we look at this guy's shirt right here, the red shirt. It's got American Red Cross on it, and I say his shirt is red because, in fact, it's actually red. If I say his shirt is blue, that's not true, right? If I look at Tom's shirt and I say Tom's shirt is Carolina blue, he would say absolutely not. Okay. He would vomit on the table. Okay. So no, to say of something, and this is Aristotle's actual definition of it. These are his words. To say of what is that it is not, or of what is not that it is false. While to say of what is that it is, or of what is not that it is not, is true. And that might sound like gobbledygook, but what he's saying is, if you look at something, there is a state of affairs about it that is true of it. Okay? And so this is where terms come into play. But my 4-year-old, like all of us sort of understand the world around us in that way. Okay, if my 4-year-old says that he wants a cookie and I give him a stick of celery, he's going to say that's not a cookie, and I'm going to say, well, it's a cookie to me, so shut up and eat it. Like, that's not going to work, because he knows that that's not true of the object I'm giving him, right? He's like, where's the Oreo? And I'm like, it's right here. He's like, that's not what that is. Like, so it is not, right? My statement that this is an Oreo is a statement that is not true. It does not correspond to the thing in my hand. Even if I'm calling the piece of celery an Oreo, that doesn't make it an Oreo, right? And my son understands this. All of us understand this, right? If UNCW told you that they were going to forgive you of all of your student loans, and that instead they doubled your loan amount, and they're like, congratulations. You'd be like, no, that's not what you said you were going to do. Like, we all sort of understand how we use how we use our language and how it appeals to reality and that sort of thing. So, if a statement is true, if it corresponds to reality, if this is what truth is, right? And again, the other ones sort of fall flat, wrong direction. If the other ones sort of fall flat, then, again, we skipped pragmatic, but pragmatic has its issues too. So if coherence theory is not it, and the functional theory is not it, and if the correspondence theory is it, that means that there are things that we can glean from what truth is. Okay, if truth, okay, is a statement, right? A statement is true if it corresponds to reality. Hence the correspondence theory, right? Again, we can thank Aristotle for that. But if that's what truth is, this is an old Frank Turek slide. Old Frank Turek slide. I think it's actually from 2006. But that means that truth is telling it like it is. What movie is this? Few Good Men, right? He's actually yelling, I think he's yelling, you can't handle the truth. But truth is telling it like it is, okay? And so there are 6 truths about truth that come out of this. If you have done this, and I have the answers here, but I want to see if anybody knows these, if anybody happens to understand or remember or has read, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and can fill in these blanks. Truth is blank, not blank. It exists independent of anyone's knowledge of it. Truth is what?
I said it's been so long since I've done this, I'm not sure I remember.
Yeah. Truth is discovered, not invented. Truth is discovered, not invented. Okay? So I'm not the one that made LW's shirt red. I'm not the one that made Tom's shirt Duke blue. Is that what you call it? You just call blue. All right. So I didn't make those things true. There they are. Okay? Truth is discovered, it's not invented. We have some examples of this too. Do I have examples of this? Yeah. So truth is discovered, not invented. It is not the case, okay? It is not the case that gravity needed to be invented by who? Who discovered the law of gravity? Right? He didn't invent gravity. He discovered what we call the law of it. Okay? You can really use that one for all of these. Truth is what? If something is true, it is true for all people in all places at all times. Consistent? Truth is transcultural. Beginning to think you guys might not know what these blanks are. All right? Which is fine. We don't have to do this. I can just I can fill in the blanks for you. Truth is transcultural. If something is true, it is true for all people in all places at all times. Right? If all men are mortal and I am a man, therefore I am mortal, right? If all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, then Socrates is mortal. That's a really old syllogism. If that is true, then it's true for all people at all times and all places. Okay? Doesn't matter your opinion of a particular thing. Okay? It is true. I don't even know what time it is in China, right? But it's true for everyone. I guess they're sleeping. Is it that late for them, or is it like morning by now? Anybody actually know? Yeah, you get the idea. Everywhere on planet Earth, it's true that LW's shirt is red. Okay? Even if somebody's colorblind. We can say their perception of the shirt has failed, right? Or we could say that LW is a human male, right? No one's like, oh, I don't know, he's a porcupine, right? He's a human male, right? I'm not saying human man because of gendered language. He's a human male, okay? You can check his chromosomes for that. But truth is transcultural. If something is true, it is true for all people, in all places, at all times. If Jesus actually rose from the dead, if that actually did happen historically, it's true for all people, at all places, at all times, that he rose from the dead. All right? Truth is blank, even if our beliefs about truth change. This is fun for me. It's none of you even know what these are because none of you have read the book, or it's not like you're previous students of mine. Truth is unchanging, okay? Even if our beliefs about truth change. This is a really interesting one, right? So some people will say that man used to think that the earth was flat, and then all of a sudden we got really smart, and now all of a sudden we know that the earth is round, spherical. But it's not as if because man thought the earth was flat that it was, and then it like became a sphere when man sort of wisened up, and I forget the Greek guy's name that figured it out. There's a Greek guy that measured the shadow of himself or measured the shadow of a stick like in Athens, and then went to Egypt and then measured the thing, same position of the sun or something, and the shadow was different lengths, and he calculated the curvature, and so it wasn't even modern people that figured it out. It was a really old Greek guy, an ancient Greek dude figured it out. So it is not the case that all ancient people thought the earth was flat, even if Kyrie Irving wants to say that. So truth is unchanging, even if our beliefs about truth change. Beliefs cannot blank, no matter how sincerely they are held. This is a trick question because that's actually would be 3 blanks. I'll just give it to you. Beliefs cannot change a fact, no matter how sincerely they are held. Okay? A belief is different than a truth. A truth is separate from me. Something is either true or it's not true, regardless of my thought of it. But a belief is mine. And so I may believe wholeheartedly that I can fly, but if I jump off if I jump off Liberty Tower, I think is what it's called, in New York, or the Empire State Building, what's going to happen? Splat, right? I'm going to die. I can't fly. Regardless of my beliefs of something, beliefs can't change a fact, no matter how sincerely they are held. I may wish that I didn't have student loans. I may try to convince myself that I don't actually have student loans, and I'm still going to get bills in the mail, right? And so your belief of something doesn't change a fact, no matter how sincerely they are held, okay? And you may already be trying to think of how you would apply this practically. That's not where we're going. We're just defining what we mean by this term, right? Truth. And so beliefs cannot change a fact, no matter how sincerely they are held. Number 5, truth is not... I know you two have read the book. Or I know you have. Tom's reading it now. Jaski's read it 100,000 times. You want to just shout a guess? Determined? That's good. Determined is good. Truth is not affected by the attitude of the person professing it. I guess you could even say determined. Truth is not determined by the attitude of the person professing it. This one's interesting. So let's see. Do you guys know who Oprah Winfrey is? I'm assuming you do. Do you guys know who Gordon Ramsay is? Chef Ramsay? Okay. 2 great examples here. So Oprah Winfrey has a show, I think she still has a show, called Super Soul Sunday, where she brings in different religious leaders and they have these conversations. And her input's usually about the same every week, regardless of the position, which is, oh, wow, that's so wise, that's so interesting, that's going to change, that's going to help so many people, wow, this is amazing, and it's a Muslim who's like, Muhammad is Allah's prophet and Allah is the only true God. And then it's a Jew, and it's like, obviously they're going to disagree with the Muslims. And you have a Christian, or you have an atheist, you have a Buddhist, and every answer from her is going to be about the same, which is, wow, that's so insightful, that's so amazing. She's very sweet. But if she looks at a Christian and she says, you're the same as the Muslim, and you're the same as the Jew, and you're the same as the atheist or the Buddhist or the Hindu, right, or the Wiccan, that's not going to be the case, right? Particularly if you sit down with someone who's an Orthodox Jew with someone from, I don't know, insert any sect of Islam, and you say, yeah, you guys believe the same thing, right? Yeah, that's not going to go over very well. And so truth is not affected by the attitude. So even though Oprah's really sweet, that doesn't change anything. Now Gordon Ramsay, is Gordon Ramsay known for being particularly sweet? More so now because of his kid show. He's kind of softened up. But it wasn't Hell's Kitchen forever ago, right? You know, and I had this image in my mind of him like pointing at someone and like just screaming at them. And he's like, they're sweating the chicken. This is raw. Stop crying in the chicken. Get out of my kitchen, right? If Gordon Ramsay says this chicken is bad, he didn't cook it right, even if he's being a jerk, he's most likely right. Out of everyone in the kitchen, Gordon Ramsay is going to be likely the expert on the issue. Okay? Even if he's being sort of a jerk about it, he's right. But his attitude doesn't affect what's true. Here's why this is important. Okay? If you're in here and you identify as a Christian, there used to be a guy that came to this campus whose name was Brother Ross. Does he still come to this campus? No? There used to be a guy who would come, his name Brother Ross. He would stand in the amphitheater and he would shout out things like, I can't see anybody's legs, but if you're a girl and you're wearing shorts, he would look at you and he would say, you're a whore, you're a prostitute, you're going to hell, right? Obviously that's not true, just because you're a girl and you're wearing shorts. But that's what he would do. Like my wife and I were married at the time, we were holding hands. We were gonna go like try to talk, hundreds of people. I mean, the amphitheater would be full and there'd be people on the grass behind it, right? And so we would go, Ratio would go, and we would engage with the students that were present and just try to ask questions. What do you think about what he's saying? And turn it into gospel opportunities. And so my wife and I are walking by up at the top, and he looks up at us and he goes, fornicators, you're going to hell, because we're holding hands, right? But if it is the case, this is a Christian truth, right? If it is the case that someone rejects God and is living in sin, that person doesn't go to heaven. And so it could be the case that Brother Ross looks up at somebody and just happens to pick someone who doesn't know Jesus and says, you're going to hell. If Christianity is true, then that's true. If someone is not a Christian, then we would believe that they're going to hell. And so he might just happen to pick somebody, and you know, it was a wild experience for him to be here. But his attitude, he could still say things that we would say are true, even if his attitude was horrible. Versus you have a professor who's really kind and he wants to disprove Christianity to you. And you say, well, he's really sweet to me and he's really kind, or she, really kind to me, and he helped me through my paper, or she, and you're inclined to believe that this person might be right because of your relationship to them. But truth is not affected by the attitude of the person professing it. That's very important. It's almost more important today because a lot of us, we're losing cultural authorities really quick. Most of us today would trust Reddit more than we would trust like the major news outlets, right? Right. We're going to trust internet personalities more than we would trust like your major news outlets. And so all truths are, last one here, all truths are absolute truths, meaning something is either true or it's false. There isn't this like spectrum of like true, sort of true, less true, true and false, sort of false, mostly false, totally false. Something is either true or it's false. So truth is like a light switch. It's not like a dimmer, right? And so something is either totally true or it's totally false. And so all truths are absolute. All right, one more time. I'm not going to actually just click back through all of that. But truth is that which corresponds to reality. If you would like to disagree with me, we can talk about that. This is a very infuriating conversation. I can tell you from someone on the other side, if you're going to disagree, if you're going to say truth isn't that which corresponds to reality, I'm going to say, does that correspond with reality? Do we see that? If I say truth is what corresponds to reality, and you say no, it's not, I'm going to say, does that correspond with reality? Okay, so to deny this definition of truth would be to affirm it, which is irritating if you're trying to take the other side of this. Okay, not my idea, Aristotle's idea. Okay, we can summon him up out of the dead and we can talk to him about it, right? All right, so there are a few more truths about truth. Okay, we went over the big six. Now we're going to talk about subjective versus objective truth, keeping in mind that our definition of truth is that which corresponds to reality. Okay, that's popcorn. It's not, a bowling ball. All right, regardless of how I feel about it, that's popcorn. It's not a bowling ball. So butter pecan ice cream is awful. Who agrees? Yeah? Anybody in here love butter pecan ice cream? My wife and I are like a house divided. She loves this stuff. I think this is nasty, right? And so if you love it or hate it, but if I say butter pecan ice cream is awful, is that true or false? No, right? Neither. You might say it's true for me. It's true for me that it's awful. And you would say, no, it's false for me. I love it. And you're like, wait a minute. Grant said that truth doesn't matter about what my opinion is. So how is this true or false? This kind of statement can't be true or false. Not in an ultimate sense. But this truth can be your opinion. This is actually where opinion comes into play. Butter pecan ice cream is awful. What if I said this? Right? Oh, wait, no. I explained this. Already explained this. So it's personal preference, neither right nor wrong, neither true nor false. Your preference. All right, your preference. Already explained that. All right, so what if I said this? Butter pecan ice cream cures cancer. Right? Is that true or false? We would say false. I suppose the jury's out. I don't know if there's been like a double-blind study, right, or any like metadata on anything like this, right? But false. Butter pecan ice cream does not cure cancer. We see the difference between these two claims. Butter pecan ice cream is awful. Butter pecan ice cream cures cancer. Right? This is an objective statement. It is either right or wrong, either true or false. Right? This claim can be tested. This claim can be tested. This claim cannot. You can't test this. Butter pecan ice cream is awful. Right? And you're already thinking, but wait, can't you just have somebody taste it and tell you? That's a different claim. If I said, who said they liked it? What's your name? Carolyn? Carolyn?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I said, Carolyn thinks butter pecan ice cream is good, that's an objective statement because it's either true or it's false. So you have her taste it. She goes, yeah, I like this. You go, okay, cool. It's true for the whole world that Carolyn likes ice cream, likes butter pecan ice cream, right? But it's based on her preference, all right? That this is like this without a subject, right? Without Carolyn thinks. If the statement is just butter pecan ice cream is awful, that's a subjective statement. It's neither right nor wrong, neither true nor false. This, on the other hand, is objective. I can test this claim. Okay? So this means that there's a difference between beliefs, which would be butter pecan ice cream is awful, and truths, which is butter pecan ice cream cures cancer. There's differences. There are differences between beliefs and truths. Okay? A belief, okay, contrary beliefs are possible, right? We just demonstrated that. I believe butter pecan ice cream is gross, and many of you think butter pecan ice cream is great, right? Our beliefs can be contrary, but contrary truths are not. I might believe that butter pecan ice cream cures cancer, but that doesn't matter. Is it true or is it not? I can test that. Is it true that I'm a human male? You can test that. Again, we're using male, not man, understanding gendered language and all that definitions. We can go into that later, right? I obviously have a position on that, but I say obviously, I guess it wouldn't be obvious. You don't know me. But contrary beliefs are possible, contrary truths are not. You can believe that everything is true, says a lot of New Age spirituality, but everything cannot actually be true. You can't look at someone who's a Muslim and Islam says that Jesus didn't die on the cross, and a Christian who believes Jesus did die on the cross, and say they believe the same thing. They can both be true. They can't both be true because we have an inherent contradiction. Jesus, or the man that we're calling Jesus, cannot have both died and did not die on the cross. One of them is right, one of them is wrong. Or neither. Jesus didn't exist, right? But you can believe that everything is true, but that doesn't make everything true. I can believe that, I don't know, what's a not controversial one? Everything that just rushed to my mind was political controversy, right? You can believe that, well, I can't do that one either. The election hadn't happened yet. Just forget about it. Huh?
Bryce Young's a bust.
What?
Bryce Young is a bust.
I don't even know who that is. Oh, no. Anybody know who Bryce Young is?
He's a football player.
So well, he just said that. Yeah. So I guess I'm in the majority here. Okay. So if any of my friends were here, they would they could agree with you. I don't know anything about football. Last one here, objective truth cannot be denied without being affirmed, is what I said a minute ago. If you try to say truth is not objective, I'm going to say, is that objectively true? Okay? And so, yeah, he's like, right? And so, truth is by virtue of when we use that word, okay, usually what we mean is that we're referring to something that is true for all people at all times and all places, right? When we say that gravity exists, either it does or it doesn't, at least in the way that we're describing it, okay? And so objective truth cannot be denied without being affirmed. This is something that is inherent to the world around us. You can't really get outside of this idea, which is why you can't really get outside of this idea. If you would like to try, we can come have a conversation. I'm sure there'll be ensuing debates after this anyway. That's not supposed to be my presentation. Did my wife add that? She did. There you go. That's for free, I guess. Whatever that is. Now I got to explain this. As you can see, lies are soft and squishy. They can be whatever shape you want them to be, right? Whatever your worldview is, sure. Truth is hard and spiky, hard to embrace, worth embracing. Cool, I guess. There you go. From shincomics.com. Okay? All right. What time is it? 8 o'clock. Do I want to... should I do self-refuting statements? Or you guys do that some other time?
That'd be a great time.
This would be a great time? Okay. Self-refuting statements, as we try to apply some of the things that we've just talked about with truth, okay? This is a slideshow that's part 1 and part 2 on truth, and so I don't know how far I would really need to go, depending on time. So you're going to break into groups here, again. You're kind of already sitting in groups. But I want you to work through these. Okay, all of these actually contain some level of self-refutation to them. And so the goal would be to draw out the self-refutation. So if you could restate the sentence, right, in both ways to demonstrate the self-refutation, then I guess you just win. Right? I don't want to show you the answers, but I can't remember. I didn't go this far in my preparation. Okay, so break into your groups and see if you can figure out, given what you've learned so far about truth, how these are self-contradictory. And then I'll give you the answers in a minute.
Am I using my smart aleck? You know that. JP's a big fan.
Let's take those turns. I like that big idea.
Yeah.
I completely agree with what you're saying, by the way. I'm just like
Sure.
and like
You don't got to qualify your question.
so with the correspondence theory, with it does it correspond with reality? What's your definition of reality? Because some people would say reality is subjective.
Well, they would say that their perception of reality is subjective.
Yeah.
So if someone is going to say that reality is subjective, they can't access it outside the mind. So like Immanuel Kant gets stuck there.
I was just
They-
learning about him and arguing with my ethics professor about it today.
There you go. So that's good. Keep doing that, mainly because the professors actually appreciate when you argue with them.
Yeah, he says that, and I'm the only one in the class. It's a 135-person Zoom class.
Holy mess.
And,
That's through here?
yeah.
Who's the what's the professor?
Don Habibi.
Oh yeah, Habibi's
So
awesome.
he was talking in his lecture notes. It was like Immanuel Kant was a devout Christian, but he didn't think God had any authority. And so I was like, well, how does that work?
Yeah.
My definition of devout Christian. He was like, well,
Sure.
different people have different versions
Yes.
of Christianity. And I was like,
Yes.
and
Kant-
then he
Kant did
started
claim-
walking in circles, and I was like,
Yeah,
you know
well-
what? It's time to go.
Kant did claim to be Christian. And so did Kant claim to be a Christian? Yes. Does that mean that he's a Christian according to your standard? I don't know what your standard is. So if the answer is no, then no. But if someone is going to say that reality is subjective, what they really mean isn't that reality, like real reality, because they don't think that that's a thing. That the perception of reality is what is malleable. So Kant, there's a question in philosophy about how does somebody get out of the mind. Descartes sort of raised that issue when he jettisoned previous scholastic thought and he started over, and I think, therefore I am. So it starts with I think, therefore I am. And so how do you get from the I think to the I am? And so Kant tried to wrestle with that too. And Kant had all of his categories and all of his understandings of things, but at the end of the day, Kant still says you can't know the real world. You can't know the phenomena. I think that's right. Phenomena is exterior, noumena is interior. All you can know is the noumena. You can't know the phenomena. And so for Kant, reality is subjective, meaning the reality of my mind. My perception is relative. So when I say reality, I mean the world that you are experiencing. So something is true in as much as it fits with the reality that you are experiencing. Now, which is why the next stage in this conversation is, how do you know truth? What is truth is question one. How do you know truth is question two. And so we sort of have to assume a few things to define it, and then we can revisit those definitions after, but I won't be here for that. But epistemology is, we're doing metaphysics, and then epistemology is step two.
All my ethics vocabulary.
Yeah. So metaphysics is what we're doing this evening, defining what truth is, and then epistemology comes after that. So what is reality? I'm going to define that as whatever the really real is.
Okay.
Whatever is real. What is real?
And it's
Right.
not even like I'm asking because I'm like, I don't agree with you. Like,
I don't care.
definitely
Yeah.
agree with-
No, I don't care. I fight with Jake all the time. Well, not all the time anymore. But yeah, no. Like, yeah, no, you don't have to agree with me at all. You ask me any question you want. You can even start with, I hate your face. Here's my question. Doesn't bother me at all. All right. Has everybody figured these out yet? Maybe? All right, cool. How is this one self-refuting?
Saying God is too big to fit in your worldview is a worldview.
That's right. So you might say, does God fit in your worldview? And the assumption there, the assumption is they're saying, yes, God fits in my worldview because I'm telling you I know this. Does that make sense? So they're saying God is too big to fit only in your worldview, which is to say, my worldview is correct in how it understands God, but yours isn't because God's too big to fit in one worldview. But by saying that, they're assuming that God fits in their worldview. Are we tracking? No? Okay. We can't know anything about God. How's that self-refuting? Yeah. Is this something that we know about God? If somebody says we can't know anything about God, that's something that you know about God, right? Ludwig Wittgenstein, right? He was known for, I think it was analytical philosophy. And he had a phrase, all God talk is meaningless. The irony is that's God talk, right? And he defends that, but I think it's still funny. Forgot that was the next one. Next one, nothing is known with certainty. What's that? How's that work?
You're saying that as a fact. So you're saying you know nothing with certainty.
Right, and there's a YouTube video I show my students every year, and it's 8-bit philosophy, and they're talking about Descartes' philosophy, and at the end the question is, he literally says, the truth is, we can know nothing for certain. I'm like, we'll accept that. There really should be, the truth is we know one thing for certain, and that's we can't know anything for certain, right? Or we can't know anything other than that, right? All truth must be held loosely. What's that? How's that self-refuting? Right. This is pretty simple stuff. Okay. Someone says, I never tell the truth. Yeah, right. It's like, so are you lying to me right now? Okay. I never tell the truth. All right. Now, the rest of this is stuff on logical fallacies, but we're not going to get into those tonight, or the burden of proof. But that's what we got. Any questions? Disagreements? Tomatoes? Okay, cool. Who is next? Local pastor? Jamie. Yeah, Jamie's going to come next week. He's going to do one of the arguments for God's existence. Okay, the cosmological argument, I would certainly come back for that. The cosmological is a really interesting argument. I've actually never heard a pastor. I guess Tom's technically a pastor. And Tom's an apologist, but we usually have like a scientist come in. So I'm interested to see how he handles that from Turek. It'll be good, dude. Oh, no, Mendez is awesome. Okay, that's all, folks. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, never mind. That's a whole other thing. I was like, why did I put the Roadrunner in here? But anybody? Yeah, never mind. It all has to do with tactics. I'm not going to go there. Okay. If not, another thing for another time. Yeah, the Roadrunner is there's a tactic named the Roadrunner tactic, right? And anyway, we're just not going to go there. But I'll pray for us, and then if you have questions, you can come and ask. If you don't, hang out or run away screaming. I mean, whatever suits you. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this time to talk about something as foundational as truth. Help us to all further recognize and wrestle with the weight of what this is, given that our culture is quickly running away from the idea of any sort of objective truth. Help us to wrestle with the philosophy. Help us to glorify you in our pursuit of this study. Would you be with all of these minds as they work through these topics for the rest of the year? Would it be something that brings you glory and draws all of them further up and further into you? We pray this in your holy name. Amen. All right, gang.
Grab some popcorn, please. Grab several.
What's up, Haas?
You remind me of this video. It's like a philosophy meme. About I'm like zoomed in.
I think I've seen this guy.
Yeah, it's a classic.